Hi, so here we are in our next video for making our fighting character, or a boxer. And in the last video we did the sprite, the skeletal bones, and the animations. So in the last video we took care of these things here, where the character's got his skeleton on, we can move back and forth, and we could punch and we could kick. The only thing is he's not hitting the bag. The bag and stuff is not hittable. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some colliders into our game. So first collider, which is the easy one to add, is the punching bag itself. So I select the punching bag, and then I'm going to add a collider 2D. Let me take off that search thing. So it's in the physics 2D package. I'm going to add, let me just add a box collider. Okay, see the shape there? And I can edit that box down to the size of the punching bag. Nice and easy. There you go. So there's a collider on it. But for collision detection, we need colliders, and we need at least one object to have a rigid body. So we have our collider 2D. We also, let's put a rigid body 2D on this bag. So here we go, rigid body 2D. And here, when you're having a rigid body 2D, gravity is just a number over here. So if I don't want gravity to take effect, because right now if I press play, the rigid body is on and whoop, the bag drops because of gravity. I could take gravity off and say 0, and then there's no dropping. But I want this bag to swing back and forth. So I added a collider, I added a rigid body. I'm going to add a hinge joint for the bag to swing back and forth on when it gets hit. So I'm going to add one more component in the physics 2D, hinge joint 2D. And now I have this little circle here. That's the hinge joint. And I'm going to just move it. I'm going to adjust its position by moving it up in the Y. Yes, and I'll just move it up here somewhere so the bag has like something to swing on. The hinge joint is not a visible thing, so it could just be up there in the air. And that should keep the bag from falling because the hinge joint is basically locked in place. So now I still have the rigid body with gravity, but the hinge joint should keep them from falling. Let me press play. Yep, and it's keeping it from falling. All right, so there, I got my bag set up. Now I want to set up the boxer. So let's zoom in a little bit here to look at the boxer, look at his bones. So this was the punch bone right here. All right, so to this bone, I'm going to add some stuff. I'm going to add a physics 2D collider, and I think I'll make it a circle collider because that's basically going to be the size of his fist. So by default, when I add the collider, it's kind of right there on his elbow. But I want to move that up, so I'm going to edit the circle collider, and I think that's the X offset. Yeah, moving up on the bone, up there to his fist. And then the radius of the circle, let's make it about the size of his fist. Okay, so now there's a collider on his fist. Then the other place I want a collider is on his foot for the kick. So I'm going to select that bone, that's his foot, and I'm going to add a collider there too. And I'll make it a circle collider. And there's his foot, and the same thing, I just want to slide it up more to where his toes are. And I can make it a little bit smaller there. So if that part of his foot hits, that will be a collision. All right, so the bag has a collider and the boxer has a collider. Let me just move him a little closer. All right, and let's zoom in so you can see the bones. So these colliders should interact with the punching bag collider. Let's press play and see what happens. I press play. It's playing the idle animation. Now I can move back and forth. Now I'll use the Alt key to punch. Let's get closer. And it's not hitting yet. It's not hitting the bag. Why is that? Let's select that collider, that object, and we got the circle collider. Let's add a rigid body to it. rigid body 2D. And we don't want his hand to drop, so I'll set gravity to 0. Okay, and let's press play. Okay, punch that back. Boom, there you go. Ooh, it looks like you broke my arm though. Look at my arm's broken. Ugh, alright, so when I hit the bag, I don't want my arm bone to get dislocated. So let me select that. And here's the rigid body thing. I could constrain movement and rotation so my arm doesn't break when I hit the bag, all right? Unless that's what you want. But anyway, I'm not wanting that. So I'm going to put those constraints on the rigid body of the hand. So I'm moving back and forth, and boom, I punch the bag. Boom. And the bag kind of doesn't really swing nicely. Let me affect that better with heavier gravity on the bag. Instead of 1, maybe let me make it like a 30. See what happens with a 30. And press play. Coming up on the bag. Boom. Oh, yeah, that's better. Boom. 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 Good. So when I punch, I hit the bag. What happens when I walk into the bag? Uh-oh. I'm not punching, but the bag's moving. I kind of don't want to register a collision unless I'm like punching. So before I deal with that, let me make sure the foot is working. So the foot, I'm going to have to add a rigid body to. Rigid body 2D. And turn off the gravity and constrain the motion on the joint. Okay, so let me just save my boxer prefab again. Save my scene. For the first time, I'm saving it. Let me just call it boxer. All right, here we go. So now how are we going to make sure that the collider only works when we're punching at a certain point and not the whole time? The way we're going to do that is we're going to go back to animation. So I'm going to pick the boxer, and I'm going to go back to my animation window. So with the boxer selected in the animation window, I pick the animation. Let's pick the punch animation first. And as we can see, the punch animation's playing. And at what points do we want the punch to matter? I guess if it's like here, yeah, if it's here, I want the punch to matter. And then up to here. And after that, the punch is over. I don't want the punch to collide with anything. So from here, I'm going to add an event to my animation. That just means when the animation reaches this keyframe, it will fire off an event. And the way we add an event is first we position the animation in the location we want the event, the frame that we want the event, and then we press this icon here, and it adds a little tab here. Okay? Then we come over here to where I want the punch to stop registering. That's where it is on. So right after that, I'm going to have another event, and that will fire off, and I can do what I want. So now this is a animation that's on my boxer. I could click on the first I'll click off any selection. Then I'm going to select an event, and over here there's a function I could call for that event. So by default, since this animation is on the boxer, it's going to have functions that are in my boxer script. And right here I have punch on. So I want that to happen when he hits here, that the collider is going to put on for the punch. That's what that function does. Then I click off, and then I click this animation event. And then over here, I want punch off. Okay, so now only when the punch is in this frame of the animation will it collide. So let's see what happens when I press play. And I'll explain the script events, function events in a moment. Let's just see what happens now. I can move back here. I can move, and it's not working because I'm still pushing the bag. Let's take a look at the script, all right? So here's the events, punch on and punch off, all right? Now let's look at the boxer and the script that we have here called fighter. And let me double click and bring the script up. And the script is kind of long, so if you want, you could just go to omarvision.com and you could download the whole package or download the scripts if you want. But here at the top, these are the public variables that you see in the inspector. Then we have a reference to the animator component. That's the variable to hold that. And then we're going to have a reference to the two bones that we added to the game, that we added colliders to, the punch bone and the kick bone. Okay, and this is private because we're going to use the names for the punch bone and the name for the kick bone to set the punch bone and the kick bone reference. So now I know what's wrong, but let me get to the point here. In the start function, I'm going to first get a reference to the animator component. That is this component here on the boxer character. And then I'm going to get a reference to the punch bone and the kick bone scripts. Okay, I get the script for the punch bone and the script for the kick bone. But you know what? I didn't add my scripts to those bones yet. So here I'm going to click on the punch bone. And I added the collider and everything, but I didn't add a script. So let me just look at my project window. The script that it wants is the hitting body part script. There you go. And then it takes a sound to play when I hit the bag. And the sounds, they just have to be files in the resources folder. And here you can see there's one sound called punch bag and another sound called kick bag. Now, if they are in the resources folder, I could load them in the script. I could load them from a script. All right, but they have to be in a folder called resources. So let me continue looking at the fighter script, and then I'm going to show you what these body part scripts do. So here I get a reference to the punch bone script. That's a child of my boxer, and I get a reference to the kick bone script. That's a child of my boxer. Okay, and the get body part script is a function I wrote here in this C# script. I'll get that that's at the bottom. So anyway, now I got a reference to the animator. I got a reference to the different bone scripts. And here's the update function that's going to run, every frame per second. And up here at the top, this is control for moving left and right. So I get the horizontal input from the horizontal axis. The horizontal word is coming from the input manager. So here is project settings input, and here's the input manager, and there is a horizontal value. See? And this says if you, it could read from the joystick if you have a joystick and you're moving it left and right, or if you are holding the A and the D key, or you have pressed the left and right arrow keys. Okay? So that's where that horizontal word's coming from over here. It reads from there and it gives a value that comes back in the range of -1 to 1. So it's not always -1, 0, and 1, because if you have a joystick that's analog, there's all the values in between. So you have smooth motion. Anyway, so you get the horizontal value, and if it's greater than 0, meaning you want to move forward, and you're not at the max position, then go ahead and do the translation that you're going to move in that direction. Then over here, we're going to check first if you're trying to move back. If horizontal is negative, you're moving backward, and you're not at the min position yet, then go ahead and, do the translation. So these two translations are the same thing. The difference is that when you're over here, horizontal is a negative number moving you backward, and over here, horizontal is a positive number moving you forward. And the move speed just increases the motion from being a 1 to being like 3.5 in a range of -3.5 to 3.5, so you move a little bit faster. And you always multiply by time delta time to keep things same on every computer. Anyway, so that's the movement of moving back and forth. And then here is the controlling the attacks. So for controlling the attacks, here I'm saying that if I press down on the left Alt key or the right Alt key, okay, this means or. If I press down on the left Alt key or the right Alt key, then on the animation controller, I set the trigger punch. So this command here, set trigger punch, is the same thing as me going over here to my animator window and clicking this button. And remember, when I was pressing play on the game and I clicked this button, he did a punch. Okay, so that's what that line of code's doing. It's pressing that punch trigger parameter. It's turning it on. It's like pushing it on. And then the same thing here, that was for the Alt keys. This is for the left control key or the right control key. If you press a control key, then it's going to set the trigger for kick, and the kick animation is going to play. You get it? There you go. So there we go. We got the punch and the kick. And that happens in the update function. Now we have these 4 functions over here, and what they do is they're going to call the punch bone script and the kick bone script. Okay? And if you recall, when we set up our animation event, we had made it call punch on and punch off, kick on and kick off. So here, when it calls punch on, it's going to look at the punch bone script and set can hit equal to true. And then in the script, it takes care of turning the collider on. And then over here, we set punch bone can hit equal to false. And that'll take care of turning the collider off. Okay, and when it's a property that we set up, it's just like having a variable and setting it equal to something. So in the script for punch bone can hit, let's go to it. It's going to be, it's a property, and in the property, I could do things, I could do extra code than just changing the value of a variable. And what the extra code that I'm doing is turning the collider on or off. Okay, and these are the ones for the punch bone, and these are the ones for the script to the kick bone. Now, this last function here I was using in the start, punch bone get body part script. So if you look over here at my boxer, there's all these child objects, and they're not all just flat. It kind of goes in and out. It's like a hierarchy, all right? And since it's a hierarchy, there's a lot of objects to go through. So in Unity, if I want to go through all the objects in my hierarchy, let's go down to the function that gets the body part script. So here you pass in the name of the body part. So let's say the punch was the bone 7. And let's see where bone 7 is here. It's like in and out, bone 4. Here's bone 7, right? So bone 7 is, here's the root. You go down into bone 1, you go down into bone 4, and here's bone 7 down at the 1, 2, 3, in the 4th level deep. But I can get all the children of a game object by using this function. This.get components in children, and I get all the transform components. And that gives me an array of all the children, regardless of their hierarchical structure. Then what I do is I read through each child, looking for one that has the name that I pass in as a parameter, and then I return that child's game object hitting body part script. Okay, so hopefully when I pass a name in, it's a part that I added the body part script to. So bone 7 here does not have the body part script on it yet. So let's add the body part script by dragging and dropping it. Boom. And the other bone, let's just look at the boxer. The other bone is this one, the punch bone. It's bone 13. And here's the hitting body part script on it. Good, 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 good. Now let me just check the one for the foot. Bone 7, and it says punch bag. No, 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 no. We don't want it to play the sound. We want it to have a different sound. We want it to have kick bag. Okay? So let's go back to the boxer and this. And instead of punch bag, we'll say kick bag to load the kick bag sound. All right, so what's so special about this body part script that I wrote? Here it is, the body part script. This is what shows up in the inspector variable. It allows us to specify which sound file in the resource folder to load. Then over here, this is a private bool that only inside the script knows about called can hit. And here's another private, that's the sound that loads up. So this is what we call a property. It's different than a function because one, as you can see, it takes no parameters. There's no parentheses like this function over here. There's no parenthesis. And then inside of it, there's a set or a get, or both a set and a get. If there's only a set, that means you could only set the value of can hit. You can't get the value of it. So here is the property can hit. And here in my fighter script, I say punchbone.canHit equals true. That means it will come here to this property. It'll hit the set because I'm saying to make something equal it. And then it's going to turn my internal private variable to equal the value, true. Now, if it's true, then I'm going to turn on the collider. I get the 2D collider of my bone, right? This is the bone. And here's the 2D collider, and this is enabled, and this is disabled if I uncheck it. So I enable it, and then if it's false, I disable it. Okay, so if the collider is enabled, then this event will fire when the collider hits something. If the collider is not enabled, then this event doesn't hit. And, I don't play the sound. And this function here, I think, was it in the, no, it wasn't. This function here is a little function where I give it a file name, and it adds an audio source component to the game object at runtime. And then it loads a sound into that component, and then it just returns the audio. So anyway, you copy this too, or you could get it from omarvision.com. All right. Ooh. All right, so now I have the scripts on the body parts. Let's press play. This should be it, folks. This should be it. Should be everything. It's been a long day. Here he is, idling back and forth. I punch, I kick. Okay, now I'm gonna hit the bag. Well, first, wait a minute. Oh, okay, now it's set up. Punch, kick. There you go, folks. We're on the way to making a fighting game. Now, instead of fighting a bag, I guess next thing we could do is have him fight another fighter, or maybe get better animations and better drawings, but it's a start.